Call the meeting to order. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Review reopening plan for the 2021 school year.
Okay, I sent all these out, these documents, we finished up the task force. First thing I wanna do is thank our task force members, and we have some here, Lisa's here, and all these guys, Andy, Gilbert, Lisa, Dustin, I think is back around the corner, and there's about 15 or 16 other people on that task force that met today, and they put in a lot of work to get this going this year. So the first thing I wanna do is just say, you know, we've put 2 or 3 different documents together that are kind of redundant, but at the same time, they're just a little bit different. This one is the plan itself. It just has all the components of the plan. This document right here is kind of the one that they're all gonna go onto the website and send out, but this has kind of a letter with it. It's more of a text and has some question and answer with it at the back. And then this is a document that we're gonna use that kind of just is a simplified form that kind of Andy put together and Kylie that kind of talks on a one-page thing that talks about the differences between remote and on-site. So our plan basically to start the year is option 1, on-site learning. Option 2 is remote learning. And if you wanna keep your kid or your students home, you can do that in option 2. Option 1 has different components to it. We're starting in on-site. That means that'll be our starting point. Everybody will come back to the building. It also has different stages that we may have to go to if we get to the point where we are shut down. There's a hybrid model that we will, we could go to after we're on a shutdown and come back try to work our way back into the building. It would probably not be a step back into hybrid. I guess it could be, but I don't see much of an option for that. Or remote learning if we get closed down like we were last year and we would do all learning from home. And I really don't know that I wanna read all the way through that. If you have any questions on it, you can sure ask if there's highlights. One of the things that we need to talk about because of the executive orders that went through last week, of course, start date. And I had at our task force meeting, and I sent that out to all of our task force members last week, and then sent the name of our task force members out to all of our staff so that they would get communicated with. The recommendation, instead of going to the September 9th date that the governor had, we feel like because of a couple different scenarios, we can start with about a week of time to get prepared for remote learning. And that was the recommendation that the task force made today, was to delay the start of school, give us 5 extra prep days, start on August 21st on a half day instead of August 14th. And that was kind of I don't know if it was, I didn't hear anybody say anything contrary to that, so I think it was I guess I could say it was a unanimous decision. Is that a fair statement? So, sure. So anyway, that was the recommendation for a start date. The other thing from the governor was the executive order on mass temperature checks and cleaning, which we're gonna follow those orders. So we needed one thing we talked about when we changed this from last time you guys saw it, masks are required all the way through pre-K-12, so we'll be doing that. And I think one thing we gotta keep, I know some people are not a fan of that, but in talking to the county health department, if we wanna keep our school open as long as we possibly can, then that's the best option. And I know that's not real popular with a lot of people. I obviously don't like to wear one very much myself, but if we wanna stay in school, that's our best option to do that and according to the county health director, that will mitigate the spread. And that's when if you have a situation, the mask isn't gonna stop it. We know it's here, it's not gonna make a virus go away, but it can mitigate the spread. Today, one of the things that we looked at was the updated case count in Osage County, and it dropped to 0 active cases with 5 quarantines. So it's really a low count as far as the states go. So her recommendation was that it was not safer to wait than it is to start now. And that was one of the things that we talk about. So the other thing, temperature checks. We talked a lot about that today in our task force meeting. And I had Andy come in, and we know we have to check temperatures at least once at the beginning of the day. And we've got some things that we had talked about. I'm gonna turn it over to Andy. We kind of, as a group, recommended the cameras that can scan several people at different entrances as you come in. They're a little pricier, but the price actually came down a little bit too, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Andy.
So we talked about a lot of different options, cheap to expensive. This is probably in the middle, to be honest with you, as far as the price goes. There's some that's just crazy. You can spend as much as you want to on this, put it that way. But our goal was to have a system that we can permanently install that is kind of it kind of can run in an automated mode. So anybody who walks by, in the case of this system, it will email us a picture of that person, the date, time stamp, and then their temperature, what their temperature was when they walked by. It'll email it to a group, so we'll define, administrators, nurse, whatever the group they decide to be. We'll get this email and immediately. We can also have an app on our phone that it'll do a push notification and get it to us a little bit quicker potentially. But it works in automated mode, so anytime anybody walks underneath that, whether it's a guest, whether it's a staff member, whether it's a student, their temperature's getting taken automatically. And then in cases of high spread, to also have the ability to man it personally, so you can pull anybody who's sick out a little bit quicker if you need to. So if we have somebody there with a laptop, and so this is capable of doing both. You have somebody with a laptop, you can watch them on the screen. You can watch them flowing in. It puts a green, I don't know if you can see it from here, but that's kind of a picture of what it looks like. It has a green box around it with the temperature floating above their head. And if it was a fever, it would be a red box with the temperature above their head. And then you would know exactly that's the person. It's right, it frames their head. So, but yeah, it's got both capabilities to where we could, if we were needed to be very aware of the spread, then we could man it and get them out, pull the kids out quicker. But if we were in a different phase where the spread, like right now, there's none active in Osage County, you could put it in an automated mode to where it's automatically in an automated mode where it lets us know. And then you do have a third option where you could have somebody, me, any of us that we designate can be watching all 3 cameras from our desk and then pick up the radio, hey, elementary entrance, we just had, and so we can pull them out that way. So it is a very flexible system. It's going to be, we talked about how many cameras to do. We were trying really hard to make it fit with just 3. But we ended up at the meeting today electing to do a 4th because the middle school gets really complicated. If you put it on the main door, then you don't get a secondary screen at all. So meaning they come in for the day and then you don't get one at lunchtime, or which a common situation could be the pain, the fever medications that wore off, or they developed something throughout the day, whatever. You don't get that secondary one. If we put it in the main hall, then you don't get any of the guests or any of the kids that came in late, like not the main hall, this entrance right here, by the activities where they frequently will come in. We'll force them in one door or the other, but if you put it on this side door, then you don't get those others that come in late. And so there's just not a good solution there. So we decided, if we put a fourth camera in right above the lunch desk, on Tammy's desk, then you'll be processing all those kids coming through lunch, as a secondary screen. So the
fourth
lunch
camera would be
line.
on the lunch line, okay.
Yeah, so the fourth camera would be on the lunch line, and then in the middle school, Tim would have the flexibility of choosing whichever, probably the middle school front door, to where you're catching, I mean, as the policy states, you're catching anybody who comes in the building, I mean, and that's probably what we, so,
Okay, I need help walking through this.
Yes.
So, first door, would that be the elementary?
so so the placement, so the elementary entrance, with adding the fourth camera, the elementary entrance, you basically put it on the back wall, point it right at the doors, and basically after 2 steps in the door, they're in the frame where it's taking their temperature, so.
So that's one.
Yep.
Okay.
High school front door, we put it on the corner, kind of where that little TV is, and point it towards the kind of the hallway, the girls' bathroom, and that entire square out in front of the high school office, as you're going down the hall or into the girls' or the boys' bathroom, that whole square would be covered.
Oh, wow.
Anytime somebody walks in, the caveat to this is exposed forehead. I mean, they have to, that's what it's looking for. Now, if you have your ball cap on, as long as you don't have it pulled all the way down, it'll still get it. It's just gotta see part of your forehead. So the third one, is that,
Yeah.
it would be, it would be a change on this one, the middle school, main entrance. So you have the office door, you walk in, you have the office door on the left, I put it as far back in that corner as I can, and it's like really, the box starts at the office door and goes all the way to the front door. So anybody who's in that hallway there would be caught on the sensor. And then the cafeteria one, going in and looking at it, would be like right above her window where she comes in, they go through the line to give their information, it'd just be right there, and it's, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 foot from the window is where it would start picking up, because it's got a angle thing, and then it would go most of the way to the hallway.
Do the students
So-
that have, that bring their lunch go through that line as well?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
They would not be in that case on a secondary screen, so we might have
Maybe
to.
they should go through that line.
Maybe we'd have to address that to where they, and maybe they do, but the kids that bring their lunch, do they go through the lunch line? Maybe get milk or-
Some of them do to get their milk. I think it's kindergarten through first grade that does that, but
Yeah.
second graders.
Would they be, like, I guess, as a secondary screen, could we make them go through
Oh, yeah.
that?
I mean, just,
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
Yep. But the prices from the first time that you guys talked about it, the prices went down considerably. I don't know, they didn't give me a reason, and that was great. So the grand total for this system with I'm gonna do the installation, but it's $18,962. That's 4 cameras, the software needed to run it, and the memory cards you need inside it. I asked them for everything, and that's what
What is their life expectancy? Did they?
they didn't say.
Seems like new technology, I mean.
It's new because it's new to us,
Right.
but when we sat through this presentation, this is one of the few companies that's been doing it for a long time, for
Okay.
different applications. So their thermal cameras certainly aren't new. I reviewed a lot of them that were definitely brand new, but they were a mature platform, so I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know.
I was having a conversation with an organization that they've been doing just the temperature guns. And what they found out is that if their people have to stand outside to wait to come in, standing in the sun, their temperatures will be high, people with sunburn
Yeah.
are high. Will this show the same way?
Well, I think any system's gonna be subject to that a little bit. Putting this in, the priority was trying to get them in the building as soon as we can without having those long lines, so I think it would help with that. I think if you look at, I know this system's no different than, they'll say recommended if there's extreme temperature variances, 5-minute wait before there's no way that you can do that.
Well, in the morning, it's probably
but-
not too bad, but anything came, you're coming off of summer and it's
Yeah.
still hot on weekends.
Yeah.
Kids with sunburns.
But that's where the secondary screen is important too, because they're gonna be in the building, they're not gonna have that extreme, and then they'll eventually, in all cases, run through them a second time, so.
this camera is just identifying them to send to.
Yeah,
the
it can be,
nurse to
it's
verify that.
it's not 100% accurate, so we need to get a secondary temperature check. It's just screening them to get, say, hey, we need to get this, double check this one.
My other question for you is, activities, that elementary school will get it. But without a camera positioned anyplace else, you're not gonna be able to screen.
Talking about like people entering, yeah, so this gate is the only one that won't, well, it would not, if we moved it, and that was kind of it was gonna be there, and to be honest, I'm glad we moved it, because I went and got out the install guide and was making sure everything, dotting all my i's before I came to the meeting, and it won't work in that spot, so, I mean, the only hope in that situation would be the lunchroom, the cafeteria camera,
Or I mean, we could just close that gate. I
or
mean,
you can close that gate.
Can
We'll
that,
have to decide.
well, that's what was bringing me to this, can the cafeteria, camera and the lunch table and what have you be set up in such a way that we could have that dual purpose, screen the kids at lunchtime and still shoot that gate?
That gate for,
Coming in?
so, I mean, I'll be the one installing them, we could install it in a way that we could potentially move the camera and point it down that hall, I mean, point it, cause during activities, that won't we won't need that camera, that lunchroom camera, it's for the secondary screen.
Re-aim it, or
So I think-
what do you think?
I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, if I pre-installed, ran the cable, I mean, it would be, now the danger and the reason why we didn't wanna do this, cause we talked about possibly trying to move a camera, just to do the secondary one, moving it every day, is I'm taking down a $5,000 camera and on a ladder, taking it down and trying to be careful with it, so there's that risk there.
You're kind of clumsy, so.
Hey, I've pulled down a ceiling grid before, so I'm not gonna hide from that one.
If you did that for sporting events, you have to have somebody to man something to watch for the temperature checks?
Yeah, and I mean, that's
Have we
a
talked about
great
sporting
question, and
events?
I don't know,
We haven't talked about sporting
I mean,
events.
we're supposed to take temperatures of anybody coming in the building, I think is the executive orders, so.
Assuming there's gonna have to be some CASA guidelines, and those will come out later.
Keisha's supposed to come out with something this week.
Their guidelines are a
Now,
little bit different.
We could buy, and this is, Tony had brought this up at our meeting today, we could buy an additional portable unit that but it would require them to walk up, stop, and move on, it's not no automation whatsoever,
So like at the ticket counter?
similar, I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, similar to that, so, those are some good questions I don't really have the answer to on that part. I could move that one to the hall and the automated part would work though, I could.
And I
do
think
that.
that's an unclear part we have right now, whether that executive order means during the school day or any time. So I think that's where we're looking for guidance.
On the screening process, when a person or student is identified as having the high temp, you talked about going to they have to have a secondary temp.
Then we'd use a gun.
Is that Lisa?
Yeah.
Do they automatically go? And then who, I guess I know it will
Is
depend
there a
on the
spot to
area,
corral them?
but who then basically says, hey, we need you to come this way and kind of
We would
maybe
end
deal
up-
with those consequences.
Try to get them the ideal thing is to get them as quick as we can, hopefully when they're coming in, and
Yeah.
we spot that, hey, come on in the office for a minute.
The notification, who does it go to? Like, cause basically I'm thinking,
It can go to multiple people.
it could go to multiple people, but do you necessarily you don't want everybody knowing that
You gotta
this-
worry about HIPAA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that we shied away from the ones where you just walk up, because it's gonna buzz, it's gonna do something, or somebody's gotta watch it to identify. This, to me, I mean, we talked about this today, there's absolutely no way that we can guarantee that it's gonna be completely private, but this seems to be the best of those devices, the best chance of keeping it private as we can, anyway. And then when in my mind, I'm thinking we have somebody watching the computer screen as the kids are all coming in, and if you see somebody, you pull them by the office, or hopefully snag them right by the nurse's
Would the
station.
plan be to have somebody in each building watching them as they come in? I assume?
Secretary, it'll be on the secretary's computers.
And then throughout the day, it would just be through an email, some kind of notification?
It can also, when it simultaneously, it can be sent to a phone via a push
A notification.
notification push, or it can go, we can see it on the screen, so
Cause you
there's a
could have
couple ways.
multiple you could have multiple
You have three.
notifications, I mean, you could, as they walk in, I mean, it could be pop, pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop, pop.
And if we're in that,
Several.
to me, if we're in that kind of a situation, then we have somebody man it,
Yeah.
looking at the screen, hey, come on, you need to come see me, and then wave it
Lock the
on.
door and don't let him in.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Go see Tony, go see
Tony.
Tony. Jen can field those.
So if they're walking around during the school day, these things are on all the time, so anytime they hit that. zone,
Anytime they
it's
walk through, yep, if they're high, we'll be notified, so.
So
And
it'll
we'll,
be interesting post PE, post, how
Mhm.
sensitive these are.
I-
about to ebb and
I will say I'm a little bit concerned about that on the elementary camera, right outside the elementary gym. And then the high school walks through that camera, so, we'll have to make do with that, but,
we'll learn.
yeah.
We're gonna have to learn, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way it'll be
There's no
perfect.
foolproof.
Yeah. And I don't know, Andy, I think the thermal cameras are the right way to go, so I'm an advocate of those. My question is, as I was reading through this, who is asking these questions every day? Have you had a cough, or do the questions only get asked if they have a high temperature?
Well, I think probably the best way to do that, I mean, we're not gonna be able to ask every kid as a interview.
That's how I read it, so I just was
So,
curious.
I think
How's that gonna happen?
we're gonna have posters at every entrance, and the posters are gonna have we didn't bring any, but the pictures of, if you have these things, do not come into the building. And we're gonna train the kids in every classroom and
Make it a no.
make it a known thing, so that when they see that, if you have these, do not come to school, stay home. And try to get that information out in that manner, so.
I like some of the things I'm hearing here, but I got one big question here. If everybody's wearing a mask, how do you ID these people coming through?
So the system is capable of facial rec, which I don't plan on turning on, unless we have to, and we can, we checked with our lawyers and we can turn that on as long as we keep it confidential, and which we would. But it's crazy, I mean, even with the mask on, it can facial rec anybody, I mean, it's not anybody that we've uploaded a database of pictures of them
So you need
to it,
pictures of
so,
everybody first.
I mean, and it's capable of doing an alert for not wearing a mask. I
Well,
mean,
you can see
if we
what the
want to.
clothes
I mean,
are.
there's a lot
I
of.
was gonna say, it's a kid
Show
in a red
them
t-shirt.
kind of show them that picture as they're coming in, I mean, you're gonna be able to identify what
Yeah,
they're
well,
wearing.
this one's not a very good example, but it has side by side, it has the temperature one, but then it also has the clear, normal surveillance camera. So you would just see a picture of that.
That
Kid in the
child
red
comes
shirt.
in and gets recognized and has the temperature and we'll pull him in, double check it, temperature's there. Parents are at work, can't get hold of anybody, what do we do?
We're gonna request that we have multiple we've got to have, and we're gonna have to beat the bushes on this, can't just have one emergency contact. We have to have multiple emergency contacts, cause I will say that's been a huge issue for all of our buildings, especially elementary and middle, never been able to get a hold of anybody to pick them up.
So we're gonna have a quarantine room while we're waiting for somebody to go.
We do have, and we're talking about the best ways to do that, but Lisa's, we're working on that. We're not exactly sure if we can find a different room that might help do that better, but right now we're talking about Lisa's room and having some extra space for her as well. So, cause you gotta clean and you gotta disinfect and all that, so you gotta have a room that you can easily do that with, so.
You guys are, okay, good.
Well, if you have multiple kids, you don't wanna transfer anything, if one
Yeah.
kid actually has it, the other kid doesn't, he just has,
The
you know,
flu
high
or
temps.
something, yeah.
You don't wanna cross contaminate.
Yeah, that's an issue, honestly. We don't have a great answer for it. So ideally, we had 2 or 3 little rooms right by the nurse's station, would be great, but we don't. So,
You can build some out of plexiglass.
well,
Cages.
kinda talked about some stuff like that, but
HIPAA, we can't let them know.
can't set them out in the hallway.
That's
So,
what's gonna be
don't use
bad.
glass.
It's gonna be kinda crazy, how do you do it without somebody knowing? I mean, you pull one, somebody gets pulled out of line, oh God, Jay got pulled out of line, he's getting checked out.
I bet he's got it, I bet he's got it.
And then he,
It'll
yeah,
be
and he goes
gossip.
home and says, I told you, yeah.
Jim
Yeah.
Bailey got pulled out, he's got it, he's got it.
You can see it, it's gonna be. We spent a lot of time on that today and, we spent a lot of time on all this today, but I don't know if you specifically want me to go through any greater detail on this plan, but those.
Kind of take one step back. Do we need approval for these cameras? Cause
It's
I
not
need to order
$20,000, I
it
just need,
tomorrow
I'd like to
if I
get a
can get them
blessing
in.
on it, I
So-
mean, we don't necessarily have a motion, but if we have
Is this the money that would come out of our CARES Act?
I'd
money?
probably use Sparks money from the county, but my problem is I don't even know how much that is yet, so.
So if we don't get that, is there a CARES Act money?
Yes, yes,
So either way, we're covered.
either way, we're covered on the cost.
So do you want a motion for it, or do you just?
Wouldn't hurt to have a motion for that, I didn't add a motion for that, but if we wanna do that, we can. Because I just want the blessing, we don't have a motion for anything under $20,000, but I just want support of the board if that's the direction we wanna go. If
I support it. I support it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we have a
We
consensus.
support
I
it.
need a motion, I'd say just do it.
just do
That
it.
works. Alright, thank you guys.
Thanks for doing all the research on that.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate Andy, he did.
There's a
look
lot
at-
out there. There is
he
a
looked-
lot of
there's
products
several
out there,
different
so.
companies, several different products, several different, and he did a lot of work on that, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.
So on the plan itself, on transportation, so we're wearing masks, but there's no temperature checks.
We decided that, and here's why the group decided against doing that, at least at this point. There's a lot of times where we'll pick up some little small kids and we're afraid of them coming on the bus and then we take a temperature and then there's nothing to do with that kid if they do. Where do you put them? I mean, there may be nobody home. We run into that a lot. So we debated back and forth on that, to be quite honest with you, and there's not a great answer for it either way, honestly. So,
What do we got in place for the bus drivers? As far as for them?
I've got masks, and shields, and that's about all I can do for them.
Because legally,
They
we talked about last time.
can't modify a school bus. You cannot put up a shield or a plexiglass thing or anything like that. That's illegal.
My question, and it kind of backs up a little bit, with everybody in mass, the students, the staff and everything, how are we gonna identify people?
Well, I mean, I don't think
You're gonna have new students coming into new staff members that have not been in their class before. Is
A lot
everybody
of
gonna wear a
teachers are
name
thinking
tag?
about making a big poster, having Andy come down, take their picture and put their poster outside their classroom. I mean, it sounds silly, but some of them are making t-shirts with their big faces on it, so kids know who they are.
Buttons too that you can put on with your picture on.
That's a good question.
I can see, especially for the younger kids, you know, you may have an identity issue to deal with on top of everything else. The other thing is, are your staff, are they gonna be wearing masks, or will they have the ability to have face shields where
They
you
can't,
can see expression?
they need to be in a mask as well. Because according to what we've heard is the shield does not do the same thing as a mask. So if you're wearing a shield, you also need a mask. He's in here. But, cause we thought about, and we got every staff member a face shield, you know, those clear
Right, we
shields.
talked about it, yeah.
We have those for everybody.
I think it actually defines it in the executive order,
It does,
the face mask.
yeah, it's in there. We copied some of that right out of the order and put in here, so.
Then the mask will be here in town.
We have 5 for everybody, staff, and 6 through 12, but we had to order some separate and they have been shipped. I think I wrote myself a note, let me see something.
So 6 through 12 is here.
They were shipped and they should be here next week. There's some other things, we ordered new tables for the cafeteria, they will be here Monday. The hand dispensers that we talked about they will not be here until September 1st or so, but we do have enough of just the gel bottles for every classroom plus refill to start. So we'll have that taken care of. The the spray bottle, you know, as far as cleaning in between, they are shipped first of next week. They back ordered the actual handles, pump handles. Had the bottles, just don't have the back ordered those. So as far as the PPE goes, we should be covered. As far as having
For
everything.
school supplies, I'm assuming you can't find Clorox wipes.
No, we don't, we're
And-
not expecting that. I know Dean and I talked about, I don't want those on there. I mean,
So I was just
expected.
wondering if they were gonna get removed from the list.
They're not, we're not removing them from the list, but in our reopening plans that the elementary's done with their leadership team, we've said that they don't have to go and purchase Clorox wipes or hand sanitizer.
Because we'll be
Because
providing
the school will
We'll
provide
have
stuff.
enough of that
Okay.
stuff.
So, and the custodial staff's all ready for this?
They have, yeah, I mean, we've been ordering stuff. We ordered a 55-gallon drum of the stuff that you put in the sprayers, instead of, you know, just smaller quantities,
Gallons of it.
because we could get that, but we couldn't get the others. I said, get the 55-gallon drum of it.
Then, when will parents make the decision of
At
which,
enrollment.
at enrollment?
This is enrollment, that's hopefully, we're gonna get this stuff out as hard
So
and fast as we
enrollment's not
can.
gonna change. Enrollment dates will stay the
No,
same.
we didn't talk about changing enrollment dates, we're gonna work on that, in fact, the online enrollment, we're hoping to open up as early as Wednesday, I think we talked about, so, to get that going. But we need to get this stuff out so the parents can see it as soon as possible, and if they have any
Wonderful,
questions.
yeah.
This document has questions and answers in it, but all three of these will be shot out if approved tomorrow, to get out.
On that late start date, that was backing it up to the 21st, is that correct?
We did yes. We asked and we talked a lot about how much time, we knew we needed some more time, wasn't sure how much time, but there's a lot of stuff as far as procedures for the day to go through with each building. We decided we could use 5 extra days to get all that done.
Then is there a makeup for those 5 days then, or?
What we talked about doing was using the 4 half days of collaboration, just pulling them back to the beginning of the year. So that'll cover 2 days, and then the other 3 would be snow days. The only way that affects I know that affects our contract at all is the stipulation that if we have 5 or fewer snow days, we take those days off, those would have to count for that. But for any
So
reason,
we're still gonna be based on ending school at the same time, that's always been planned.
that's the whole.
Keeping the calendar the same.
The calendar doesn't change other than the collaboration leaves the calendar, those 4 half days. And obviously the beginning of the year with 5 days later. That's the change on the calendar.
Do we need to vote on that, or is that just gonna be put out to
Yeah,
parents
we're
so
gonna
they
vote on that, I
aware?
think that's a motion, yeah.
Has anybody got any more questions on it?
I got a question on procedurally on the exemption for the medical conditions for the mask.
Be a doctor's note.
I didn't know if that was identified, I didn't see it identified in any FAQ or anything about how that student was gonna be identified.
We'll have to have a doctor's note on that one. That's pretty typical on exemptions for anything. Yeah, if you bring a doctor's note that says you have no business wearing a mask, then, cause we're gonna have some issues with interrelated and asthma and just, you know, there's gonna be some kids that just can't wear a mask, and they're exempted due to medical or whatever.
On the entrance to the school, will the staff also be required to go into those three ways? Cause
They
I mean,
either
I
have
know
to-
that there's multiple
we-
back ways in.
We talked about that today. They either have to go in that entrance or they have to walk under that camera
Come in and then
immediately.
get,
I mean, they don't have to, I don't know that there's a reason why they can't walk to the camera when they come in and then,
yeah,
but they have to walk under the camera.
I can see that.
Yeah,
So
we
if
talked
we
about that.
6 AM volleyball practice, the same thing would be in place or whatever, if it's
Yeah, we'll
inside the
get temperature
building.
checked.
Cause it's just constantly on, it's not something that you would turn off and turn back on.
So it's 6 a.m. practice, somebody's gotta get a text or
Somebody
something.
get a text, but there probably won't be anybody in there to monitor a screen at that point. But you'd get a push out.
How does it identify that person? Just a snapshot of the picture?
Yeah, it'll be a thumbnail of it. I can't say that I'll be able to identify, but I feel confident that our administrators will be able to identify the students from the pictures.
I mean, we can even have the SRO helping us with stuff like this, you know? Cause he can watch and monitor too. He's in there almost every morning, I believe anyway, so if he's watching
I
monitors.
think the only early morning practice we really have is basketball. Volleyball goes early.
They don't necessarily typically need to do that.
I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around that identity when they come and say, school spirit day, everybody wearing an Indian t-shirt, comes in wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I got a name tag.
Yeah, find this person, they've got, there's 650 kids here.
Yeah, some was a big name tags, might not be a bad idea.
You'd be surprised how we do it sometimes, even now, you know, you find somebody you do recognize and who'd you walk in with this morning? I mean, there's ways to find
I was gonna say, I've been on enough surveillance. We've done a lot more with a lot less. A lot less, consistently.
Good to know. I don't wanna know.
But were they masked?
They were masked, but they looked like
It's
little
all in
blurry
the eyes.
dots.
Even if
and
we have
figured
to
it out,
follow them down
so.
the hallway with different cameras and find out where, I mean, we find.
Yeah.
Right.
With in a nutshell, the basis of our plan is the technology that we started with. I mean, that's the whole nuts and bolts of our plan, remote and here is to use the Google Classroom platform for everybody. And the teachers will use the Chrome pad with the tripod to bring those kids into the classroom or video themselves live, and then those kids can be running the same schedule that their classmates are. And that's I guess, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that's accurate. I mean, it keeps them, the challenge, not necessarily a challenge, but we'll try to schedule it accordingly so that the teachers aren't overwhelmed, but, yeah, that's exactly right. We'll bring them in, they'll be able to interact with their peers and.
One of the things that we have to do is make contact with those kids every day, so that's,
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna be in the classroom, hopefully, you know, running that. Now, we did also, you know, there's gonna be some kids that they can't do it until night or whatever, and so it'll be,
But the videos will be recorded.
so they can still do that, so we may have to get creative about, you know, communicating with those kids, but we have to do that daily.
So all these classes will be recorded then?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this earlier, so if you were sick, just the flu or whatever, and you had a fever that morning and you
You could be
slept
in
till
class.
noon, you can go back and pull up that recording and watch the class.
It's not
Likewise,
just those remote kids that are gonna take advantage of this, or it's gonna be advantage for everybody.
Likewise, if you have a activity that you have to be gone early in the day, you can go back and find that recording and catch yourself up in class. That's right.
Yep.
See, I think that's got long-term benefits there,
Yeah.
'cause
So this
Kids
has
can get
nothing to
behind
do with
pretty
the
good.
sports schedule yet, cause Acacia, we're waiting on Acacia.
I did submit a survey today that had our anticipated, it wasn't a specific date, it was a week, so they're waiting till, I think they've got an executive meeting tomorrow, talking about when and timeframes, but I don't know anything more about that yet.
I know their dilemma is basically all the 6A schools are not starting until September 9. And then you got every 1A school starting on time, and then everybody else in between. So they're trying to debate, do you have a hybrid of the schedules? What kind of schedule do you play? What do you cut out? Do you have audience? Things like that, so.
Just in communication with our county schools, in Three Lakes schools, we've had everything from starting on time on the 14th to the 19th, to us on the 21st, to the 26th, to the 9th. Yeah, so we're all over the map on start times.
So we should probably start thinking about, Andy, as we don't get,
Sorry, I was getting ready to cough, I didn't wanna do it in here.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just thinking as we move on, anticipating, you know, we'll have a basketball season as having more live streaming for, you know,
Yep.
grandparents that aren't comfortable coming, but they don't wanna miss it.
We've been dabbling in it for a while, we have the technology to do it, we've just gotta figure out the manpower to do it,
Uh-huh.
that side of it. I mean, it's all there doable. The remote, the off-site games gets a little bit complicated, cause you gotta get their permission to stream, but anything here at the school, yes, we're prepared to do it, it's
It
just,
could even be student, I mean, we can figure that out down the road,
Yeah.
but I think we have to be more,
there's a lot of
proactive.
and there's a lot of possibilities for the, like you said, the students to kind of take
Learn
charge
about
of
it,
some
yeah.
of some of that too, so, I mean, we don't have to make it a completely professional thing, I mean, those kids can get in there and try to
I have a techie son.
broadcast, so.
love it.
Yeah,
This day and age, it may be a good pathway to.
yeah,
You could create a broadcasting team,
You remember last year
high
we
school
talked about how
broadcasters.
some things couldn't be streamed because of like student names being said
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Has any of that kind of changed
no,
because of this?
so, I don't know if you guys could hear, but she was, this is Darcy mentioned, about we have a policy in place about not broadcasting, publishing students' names and first and last names along with their likeness, with them. And so we would have to be careful with it in a game or a sport like that, you're talking about, it all is about the quantity of students. So if it's one student, no, we can't do it. If it's 5 or more, we can, but we're not supposed to identify somebody, so it's no Lomar at the free throw line. You know, I mean, I can't say, we'd have to be careful about
No broadcasting team.
something like that. Now, they could, but we
How
would,
do-
I mean,
how do
we
other
just have to
schools
get
do
creative with
I
how we.
know.
How
How does Council Grove and all those, I mean,
Is that a school policy?
That's our district policy.
Okay.
gotcha.
And it's an abundance of caution, I mean, to be honest with you, in
That's fair.
today's world, I don't feel comfortable,
The only time that
putting
really
our
is,
students out there like that, I guess.
the only time that's bit us is in a wrestling situation.
Yeah, wrestling, and then we had one, Adam Delecta won a great, I can't remember what it was called, but it was at Emporia, won first place, and they had a great video. Sorry, so there's just some things like that, and I think we talked about adding, and we haven't done it yet, so I'm glad you brought that up, but adding a parent disclaimer. If a parent gives us permission to broadcast Adam's video that he made, then we'll do it in those cases with parent permission, but that is one part of the live streaming that we gotta be careful about, so.
Is the morning broadcast in the elementary, is that okay because it's just localized amongst the classrooms?
Yeah, I've been meaning to call Lori and talk to her about it in general. It is public, should apply to that same thing. I thought they just used first names. It's first names and last names when it applies. So I mean, it should apply to that same.
So does anybody have any more questions on the reopening plan?
I got one more.
Yeah, so I'm gonna circle back to the reopening plan, so if the fact that the teachers now have their Chrome pads, their tripods, and they're picking them up, what does the training look like? Is the training already prepared for them to start learning this? What do we do with substitute teachers? Like,
Yeah.
how do we get everything ready?
So, it's a good question, and it's not, I don't have a fully prepared answer for it yet, but the thought process that we've been at is, I've got videos, we've made a video and only half of them have been given to the teachers so far, we just need to get them posted. But we've made a video for virtually every step of the Chrome pad process, that they can watch. But during these 5 days, I think these 5 days are gonna be critical, to being able to pull this off like I know our teachers can. But we had talked about doing some technology training in the morning and then giving them the afternoon to work, practice, play around with it. My hopes is that they'll play with it with their peers and they'll kind of replicate it a little bit, and do some stuff like that. But that's, so ultimately, the Chrome pads actually they're very easy to use. It's probably the setting it up in their classroom that they need to practice the most. And, that's what we have videos, showing them exactly how to do that, so.
So that, there's that component, and there's the Google Classroom Streamline component that we had
Yeah.
part of our task force working on earlier in the summer, that one of the things that the parents came back and had some complaints about last spring was the fact that we had so many multiple avenues for using Google Classroom and not a lot of consistency, and it made it really difficult to track what the kids were gonna do. So with that, we have a document, a team, part of that team, I know Gilbert, you were on that team, and I don't know who else, but quite a few of them, but they worked on how are we gonna utilize Google Classroom with they're not gonna be identical on how they use it, but we're gonna mainstream or pare it down so that they're used, that process is used in a more consistent manner for the parents and the kids, so that they're not lost when they get home and trying to find all these things like I know happened in the springtime. So that's part of it too. So it's not just that, it's the Google Classroom. And then one of the things I'm trying to do, we have all those mandatory trainings at the beginning that a lot of it's done on Infinitec, which is a video, so I'm gonna release, Kylie's gonna release that. We've got all the videos ready to go. We're gonna release that on August 1st. And if the teachers wanna get that done ahead of time, they can do that. They don't have to do it, but if they wanna utilize their next couple weeks to start working on that, then maybe they can get all that mandatory stuff done ahead of time. And so that'll gain us some time as well, so.
So contractually, we think we're fine with this plan
I think so.
going into the year, and then has KSDE said anything about, so with this technology in place, is there a way we can still hold a class session if there is a true snow day down the road?
We talked about that. Do we even need snow days anymore?
Yeah.
The only thing that really hung that up was if our elementary kids didn't have their technology at home. You know, I mean, everybody else,
We don't wanna ruin life,
you know,
go sledding,
so
just kidding.
could we would we really have to have a snow day? Not really. We could teach from home, it's just
The kids
You
might
can prepare for
already-
that too.
yeah, what's that?
I mean-
You can prepare by weather forecast for that.
We always know when to bring our computers home from work, cause.
Do those elementary Chromebooks, do they have,
We put them in cases,
did?
but they're not the bag cases, they're not skinnier, but more protective case, yes, we did put them in
I mean,
cases, so.
we have a while before it's gonna snow, hopefully.
I hope so.
Might just be something. to
I'm more
think
worried about
The only
COVID.
ones that wouldn't have it would be preschool and kindergarten.
Yeah.
I guess we just whatever.
I mean, if you think you're gonna have a 2 or 3 day kind of week, that's gonna push school back now because we've
That's good,
taken 3 snow days, it might be.
as we,
If we're worried about that, if it is 5 days.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. We can, if we have a snow day, we could actually teach from home.
I mean, as long as the power's on and the internet works.
all those things come along with the Kansas ice storm. You never know.
So
You
are
got, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kat, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna go back to my substitute question, I mean, how are we gonna get substitute teachers prepared when they all of a sudden need to come in on a day?
Well, we thought about bringing some of them in for a training, but I don't know if we have a legit list. We have a few of our normal subs. That's a really great question. That's
That's why
gonna be
it's
tough.
important to have Kylie able to be available and handy and
I was gonna say, right now, that would probably be the plan, is tech department, and one of us would run down and get them started, so.
If we can though, I do think it's a good idea if we can even pay them to come in for some of this time and see if we can get some of those subs trained. So if we have some that we know we wanna
Key
count on,
ones, yeah.
the key subs, get them in and get them before the 21st and get them some training ahead of time.
Would it be unreasonable to ask, like, if preparation for like a basketball game, you know, like a middle, I'll use Gilbert as an example since he's here. you know, he knows he's gonna be leaving at, say, 3 o'clock to go to an away game, or has to be gone for a in-service day or something, or training, could he then prepare something that's on video, since he has access to the technology, and the sub could essentially just
Yeah.
show the
You
video?
do it ahead of time. See, I mean, this is not really new. I mean, we've got a teacher, at least one teacher that's been doing this for a couple of years, several years.
Paul used to do it.
I used to do it a long time ago on the smart board, so yeah.
I mean, you can have your stuff done ahead of time where you come in, push play and go. And that takes a little work ahead of time, but
We have some
Well,
teachers that do that now.
To that extent, you don't even necessarily have to present it in front, I mean, if they submitted it to their Google Classroom, they pull it up
It's
and
out
watch it on their
online.
Chromebooks, I mean,
Yeah.
so. Which they would need to do for this remote learning situation anyway.
Which would work unless you have unintended illness.
Well, yeah.
After talking to the county nurse today and, this isn't gonna be a what if, it's gonna be when we have a case. And that's what I hope is that everybody doesn't freak out that we get a case and panic starts in and everybody runs for the hills and thinks the end of the world's here. So at some point in time, that's where we're gonna need help from everybody, I think, teachers, students, parents. This is gonna have to be a team effort for all this to work, so. Just wanted to add that, so everybody knows that.
On the
That-
masks that we provide, when do parents receive them?
that's a great question. We talked about that, I don't know, they come in packs of 5 and we're just gonna pass them out as they come in, and put one on. I guess, unless we can come up with something better, back to school night might be a good time for elementary, but that doesn't really work great for middle school and high school.
Well, they may not come in there for enrollment though.
First day is about the only thing I could think of, and that's just passing out at the outside.
It's got a half day the first day, right?
Yeah,
So it'd be a good learning day anyway.
And when kids come in, I mean, I know normally the elementary goes to the elementary gym, are we gonna be spacing them out or sending them down to a classroom or?
Go ahead, Dina, that's your deal.
My plan is to send them down to the classroom. And we've talked about that extra time in there and
We don't know whether to, ideally, if we could get people to come in closer to 8 o'clock, it'd be a whole lot better, but then you do have the bus kids and then you have the kids that wanna eat breakfast. So you gotta give them at least 15 minutes to eat breakfast. So, that was a big topic.
On the mask, I turned and asked Lisa, most of those that I've seen that are in the plastics, they wash before wear. So I mean, I'd hate to hand them out the first day of school and unpack it.
I guess I didn't know that.
So the mask
I
I've
wonder if
gotten in
maybe
bulk.
we could set it up kind of like we did when we picked up supplies, where it's just kind of like a block of time. And parents can,
we have till the 21st evidently, so that gives us plenty of time for everybody to come in and get those masks as soon as we get them in. I mean, we start work next week, so we're gonna be in the office 7 to,
Might be a situation where we can have people come in and pick up their Chromebooks and, I mean, if that's what we wanna do, but usually we hand those out at the seminar, don't we?
So we have temporary masks, so when somebody forgets to wear a mask to school,
You know what, that's a good idea, we have enough temporary masks for every kid the first day. We could do that. Put the temporary mask on, here you go, take these home, if you wanna wash them, but yeah, that's a good call. We could do that, I'm almost positive we have enough, if they'll fit the little kids. We ordered some for the little kids too, temporary just the other day. So, that's a good idea, we could definitely do that.
Might be kind of expensive, but did you mail them out?
Could. I actually think it'd be cheaper to give them a temporary mask than the mailing. Yeah, probably.
We've mailed masks at my office like 3 times and it's been expensive, $2 or $3 for one cloth mask.
we mail out.
Well, they're there after school started too.
that's that heavy.
Because it's bulky,
Wow.
the envelope's thicker than the minimum size.
How about something like what you did to distribute food?
that's what I'm saying, just have a block of time where people can drive through
and
and.
hand it.
Oh, yeah, that's possible.
I mean, easy enough,
I just
I
think
think
that first day
that's-
we can stand at the door and handle them when they come in, that middle school, I can put their other 5 in their locker, their mask are in your locker, the rest of them are in your locker, ready to go.
And they have to wear the ones that we provide them,
Not
like if
necessarily.
they showed up in their own, like if,
As long as it fits the definition of a mask by order of the governor, which is in here, then they can wear their own. I mean, we're not gonna be too particular about that. We just wanna make sure that everybody, if they don't wanna go buy a mask, we've provided 5. And the reason we said 5 is we want them to be laundered at home, and that gives them a fresh one every day, and please get them in the laundry at some point that week, you know.
well, I would put that out too, because there's gonna be some kids that probably have one or a parent has one for them and they may think that they've gotta wear that one and
I
they
think
don't
It's
bring
in,
one
I
with
think
them.
I read it
I
in
think it
here.
is in here.
Is it in the back?
I believe it is. Then we talked about it today, what if a kid wears their own, and I said,
Right.
well, you may have a high school kid that comes in with a bandana on or whatever, if it meets the need, or if it meets the definition of what a face mask is in here, then it's okay. So,
Corey, I don't know if you got your question answered about that from 7:45 to 8:05. You
I
might wanna
mean,
ask that again.
I know that's a magic question because
I know.
you don't know, you're gonna have,
right,
everybody's gonna show up to school at 10 till 8.
right now, we
And-
feel like we're gonna have to put them in classrooms.
Yeah.
Cause there's no way you could put 300 kids in a holding tank at elementary gym.
And I know too, I mean, I just don't wanna, like we're talking about the teacher contracts, I just don't want to put out the expectation where they're supposed to be here earlier than they are technically contractually obligated to, but
We have 7:45 on the, doors will open a little later this year.
yeah.
We just
I mean,
have, we just have to.
And there may be, I know that first, it's gonna take a long time, I mean, you're gonna have people backed up and not knowing what to do and, it could be 8:05 and you
Well,
still have a lot of kids to get into the school, so,
It'll be interesting, we'll know more when we know how many are gonna remote
yeah.
learn and how many are gonna,
And we will have some choose to remote.
I think
No
we
doubt.
will,
There's just some people that medically need to and they're not ready to send their kids.
or they might have somebody in their family who
Right.
want to, yeah.
Right. Our goal, we need to keep as many kids with us as possible because that's funding. So we need to keep,
Give them the options, so.
yes, yeah, we need to
How
keep.
does that affect our funding, that many kids that are doing it online?
Remote with us doesn't affect them at all, as long as they get their 6 hours a day in and we contact them and do the things that we have to do. They count a full FTE. Now, if they don't do those things, they won't count as much, they still have to get their time in. If they choose to go to a different platform altogether, like what you see on TV, a virtual different, then we lose that funding. That's
What will this do for the VOTEC kids?
not a thing.
So everything with them's on schedule.
They start.
Mrs. Camarena has a tech meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock with Washburn Tech. So they're gonna describe what that's gonna look like. We did talk about temperature checking those kids before they get on the bus, cause they get on at 7 in the morning.
Right.
I think they
But
start.
they
they're
all drive
older.
themselves there now,
Right.
so if they can turn around and go home, what's that?
I think if I remember right, they start on the 12th or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions on the reopening?
Is this gonna have effect on the free and reduced lunch count then? Or it all depends on?
We would, if we have a remote learning student that wants to do, if you have a free and reduced kid that's remote learning, we still have to provide them with lunches, they just have to come and get them. But the pay, is the same, either way. And if we would close down and go all remote, then we would have to provide lunches at the same cost.
Potentially shouldn't mess with our funding then.
Shouldn't. That's all a big, hope it doesn't type of thing.
Yeah.
Cause we really have no way of being able to predict some of this stuff at this point.
There's probably no, Wesley slack the state's willing to give on that either, is it?
Well, initially, we thought that competency-based learning was gonna have an impact on the 1116 law, and we found out later it did not. So, there is no leeway on that law, we have to get the hours in, whether we're here or whether you're at home. we gotta get those hours in.
Motion, I don't need to talk about it, we're making up the days, right?
No.
I would make the motion, we approve the USD 4/20/2021 school reopening plan and to start school back on August 21st, 2020.
Second.
Aye.
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 I
Troy, there are a couple
know.
where it was listed as August 14th.
Yeah, I got,
Those will be.
that came across real quick, and that was our initial date, but we do gotta get, I talked to Andy before we pump this out, it's already changed. So we're gonna make sure that, and we've got other letters that need to go out as well. And we just, now, a lot of communication that's gonna have to come out of the buildings.
This date doesn't affect staff or anything, it's
No,
just.
staff's gonna come in normal time, all the staff will come in normal time, and then, we just have an extra week before we start school.
Budget.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're gonna need to, yeah, I did wanna say, do you guys have anything you'd like to add? Because I wanted you, we have some representatives here, at least poke your head up and say hi, but is there anything you guys wanna add to what we talked about? I feel like you got
I
excluded.
will say that there was like a ton of like, this wasn't like a, I don't know, Troy just told us what we were gonna do type of thing, I'll say that. There was a lot of discussion and a lot of differing opinions about how things should go or what things should look like. I felt like it was a really like productive conversations. I think that as task force members, we got a lot of teachers that came and talked to us about different things, and we were able to bring those and voice those opinions, and felt like it was a really good collaborative teamwork effort. But I will say that one of the things that we stressed and we're gonna try to bring back for our staff is just having grace and just supporting each other and knowing that this is gonna be a hard situation for everybody. And some days, who knows what Johnny's gonna be doing in the background in his online education or whatever, but just doing our best and supporting the teachers along the way is probably one of the main things we discussed today, so,
It'll be a challenging year.
yes.
Thank you guys for taking the time to work with the task force.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, task force.
Okay,
You're more than welcome to join us for the budget conversation.
I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can on this, and then, because it's really kind of repetitive to do this now and then again on the hearing, but I'm just gonna kind of guide you through, some of these are the most really, I don't wanna say important, this is kind of how the budget's built, in other words. So the first page is the code 99, and that just is a summary of your budget. And it talks about the funds and your mills and stuff like that. One thing that you'll notice is our mill on LOB is gonna go down some this year, and that's because we had, if you remember, I said we would have a carryover of about 71,000 in LOB, talked about that last time. That's because we had that carryover, we didn't need as many mills to bring up the what we need to do to get our 30% of the general budget. Okay, so that's why that's down a little bit. The first one's general, and that's 20 mills for everybody across the state. You get your 20 mills, and then you have your LOB mills, then you go down, you have capital outlay. Because ours went down a little bit, we have some of these projects coming up. I added 1 mill to our capital outlay to be able to pay for some of the projects that we hope to get done in some of the things that might surprise us, like buses and different things like that. AC for the gym, different things like that. Bond and interest been pretty steady. You have to have enough bond mills to pay your payments as the year goes on. And then down there you see the total. You can look that 51 on the far right hand side, far right hand column. You can track those down, and then you see if you look over to the 2019 and the 2018, you can see what those mills have done. So we're actually coming down a little bit from last year, almost 2 mills. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to the open page, and this is kind of where you start your budget process. At the top, you see the assessed valuations, and you can see one of the things that helps us too is our assessed valuation went up this year for 2020. There's the last number there is on that first column at the top is our assessed valuation. It went up. Then you can kind of see taxes levied down there for the last year. And then some of this stuff is for the state. It's not really for us, but it's for the state. Then you go down and you can see our enrollment histories, and you can see at 17, 18, 19, and our estimated for 20. And you, like, for instance, that number on estimated for 20 doesn't do anything for us. It's just an estimation for the state, because our numbers go off of the previous 2 years now. That's changed.
And this still counts in the 4-year-olds too, correct?
The head count does, yeah, and we get half, for 4-year-old at risks, we get half funding, okay? So you can see as we go down the career, some of those things that count for your, like, the next number down is 6 preschool aged at risk 4-year-olds. That is half funding, so we think we're gonna have 12 kids, not 6. That was the estimate that I was given. It could go up, we could have to republish. So that's kind of where that is. How many kids do we expect to transport? That comes literally right off of last year's audit. Those are the safest numbers for us to use, is last year's audited numbers. Turn the page over, those are virtual. We may, I don't know that we'll have a lot more virtual, but that's run through, that isn't like our remote learners by any sense. That would be virtual learners through Greenbush, in their program that runs Edgenuity for adults and some students that we have going through there. If anybody asks you how many square miles in our district, it's right there, 127.3. Then you can kind of go down and it talks about capital outlay. Back in 2014, we passed the resolution that we could go up to 8 mills, so we did that. That's a maximum number we can have in capital outlay. We don't have 8 mills, but we have the authority to go to 8 mills, okay? Bond indebtedness, you were talking about bond. There's our bond debt for 2020, and you can see it better keep going down. That's what it's doing. But when is that gonna be paid off? 2030, okay? So then you have some estimated motor vehicle taxes and different things like that. FTE enrollment for all students, and it kind of has an estimations there. It has our actual enrollment, and in 920, those are all actuals actually, or FTEs. Let's see. Eligible for reduced meals, we said 89. Then you turn over to page the 150 form. This actually builds your general fund budget right here. Okay, so you start with your estimated or your enrollment from last year, your adjusted enrollment, and that number comes from last year because it would be the higher of the last 2 years, and that comes back from table 1 on the page we were just on a little bit ago. Then you have your 4-year-old at-risk estimation, your low and enrollment and high enrollment factor, bilingual. We have one little guy that's a bilingual kid. Career and tech ed hours, we just use last year's audited number, not knowing exactly who's gonna be enrolled in what. That's the safest thing we can do. Free and reduced, this one, we went off of last year's audited numbers as well, and this is a wild card because, especially this year is a wild card. But the number that bit us a few years ago was just below that, where it says high density at risk. If you overestimate that very far, it'll bump up your high density at risk pretty quickly, and like that number can skyrocket pretty quick over the 3.8. If that goes up to 10 or 11 or 12, on high density and you don't actually meet it, then your budget's inflated. Remember, this is not an actual number, this is an estimated budget, okay? So it will change, I can guarantee you it's going to change, one way or the other. It could either go up or it could go down. So transportation weighting, that comes from a table back here. Ancillary, we don't have that, that's military. Estimated special ed weighting right there. Then we have no math and science at Fort Hays, we did 1 year. So then all of those factors go in to make your general fund budget of right there, and then on line 17, it says total general fund budget authority, and you have a little factor that you take that times, and that's where you get that number, okay? Then on line 18, that's your local option budget, lines 3 through 11 plus 16, and that's where you get that gives you your special ed number added in, okay?
And what's COLA, C-O-L-A, is that just
That's a
living?
cost of living factor.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just part of the formula.
Did they change the date this year off of September 20th, or is that still on
No,
the
that's the date you count.
It'll be the 21st this year,
21st?
because
Is it on-
the
what-
20th is on a Sunday,
Oh,
so.
yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So even the schools that aren't starting until September, they're,
Still gonna use the 20th or 21st, yeah. So on the 150, if you move on, I'm not gonna go through, some of this doesn't apply. Didn't really have to. There's that high, if you go back to page 3 though, you can see that high density at risk. And if you have 50% or more in the building, which it's saying that we're only gonna have 3.8. That number could go up, or it could, we just don't know. If we come into the elementary and have a whole bunch of free and reduced kids or free, then that number could balloon on us, and
is
we might
that the
have to
number that kicked our butts 1 year?
Yes,
It was
yes.
over 10 on our.
Yeah, it was over 10, and it if you take, it inflated our budget dramatically. And where we thought we had a good number in there, and it was not.
Ended up being.
It was inflated, not intentionally inflated, but just inflated. And a lot of superintendents like to inflate it, they just know it's inflated. But I don't necessarily care to do it that much, because I don't know, just people see the numbers and they think that's what it is, and it's actually not, okay? So, I'm gonna go on back to Form 155. So back on page 155, that's your local option budget, and that is just, if you just look at line number 6 there, it's just your computed general budget, 30%, that gives you your number. Cause your LOB can be 30% of your general fund. Okay? And then I think it talks about bilingual weighting. There's been a law lately that you have to transfer a certain percentage of your at-risk weighting and bilingual weighting, and that's what those numbers are, okay? And that's pretty much it. And then you got your cash balances that we talked about last month. That's beginning cash as of July 1st. Any questions on that? It's kinda repetitive, but I'll do
You want those back?
no, you can have them. Next month will be when we do the hearing. It's kind of the same thing. If you have any questions at that point, we'll try to go through it, but I may not go spend as much time then, just to be not so repetitive, but if you have questions, I can do that. But we just need, if you see the top of the code 99, it says that we need to, we will have on the 12th day of August, 2020 at 7 p.m. in this room, a hearing to answer questions and objections. And so that's at the top. This goes to the paper
And
tomorrow.
that's at our regularly scheduled board meeting.
Yes, and we just scheduled this one at 7 o'clock, and it'll go right from that into the regular meeting.
Oh,
So we don't have to have another special meeting. But
I'd
this,
make-
this is what goes in this paper.
I'd make a motion to approve the publication of the 2021 budget.
Second, I.
Aye.
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 I make a motion, we go into executive session to discuss potential certified positions, classified positions, and supplemental position pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under comma, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at,
We had 5 minutes.
so, 8:20,
Better give us 8:23.
8:23.
With admin present too.
Yes.
Admin present, yes.
Second. Aye.
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 I am new at this.
Aye. You know.
I would've hit you in the shoulder.
Are we back?
Yep.
So you needed a motion to approve.
Just Mr. Smedley.
I'd make a motion, we approve Terry Smedley as a full-time substitute teacher. Can I do these together?
Yeah.
And also to open a position for a certified medication aid, temporary for a 1-year COVID tenure.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.